Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged's Emerging Vendor Series. I'm your host, Rick Smith. Join this new series highlighting ConnectWise PitchIT contestants. Each episode, we highlight an emerging vendor who's changing the game and making a big impact on the MSP space. Now, before we get into the PitchIT series for today or today's guest today, I'd like to make our quick public service announcement, which we always do. And you guys who listen should always know what we're talking about here, and that's TechCon Unplugged. Now, TechCon Unplugged is happening September 7th to the 10th at the Delta Hotel in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Now, this is our annual gathering of IT business owners, techs, and vendors in the space. And from there, you will learn with like-minded business owners in panels and breakout sessions, gain key takeaways from partners and vendors in the community. And my absolute favorite part, and what has drawn me to this event so much, is you get to experience those one-on-one or spontaneous group conversations where great friendships are built, relationships are cultivated, and ideas are exchanged. Now, tickets are on sale at TechConUnplugged.com, So we invite you to take advantage of our second level of early bird pricing, which is $299. Now that pricing is good to the end of this month, June 30th. We do look forward to seeing you there. Now, as we begin our PitchIT, I'd like to bring in my co-host for this series, someone who's very familiar to the show and everyone knows. He is the, he is the economic economist at ConnectWise. This is ConnectWise. Oh my God.
All right, ready, Rick? I got you. I am the economy evangelist at ConnectWise. All right. Hey, Rick, how are you?
Great, Sean. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Just back from IT Nation Secure last week. So recovery is still happening for me. I've been hydrating and drinking Pedialyte. Basically, I'm like an infant.
Wow. So tell us a little bit. How are things at
Secure?
Oh my God, at Secure. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, I got you, Rick. I got this covered, man. It's Monday. So, actually things went well. I will tell you what, I was mentioning to you before that we had a number of attendees we thought would come. We ended up with about 15% larger number than expected. It really validates what we're doing for where the space is in general, how important cybersecurity is, and how effective these conferences and these technologies are doing for the space. It is, I mean, again, and it's a big deal because this is only the fourth year for Secure, IT Nation Secure, and we, 4 years ago they weren't sure if it was going to be able to take off, and now this isn't going to go away. If anything, it's just going to keep on growing.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
It is. There was a ton of sessions. There honestly so many, and I guess I will give total kudos to the space at large. We had so many between vendors and MSPs working together on all the breakout sessions. There was a ton of good content. And I think it's so, you're an MSP. Same reason why we go to other conferences. So we can we learn from the vendors, we learn from people that are hosting the events. We also learn from each other. And that's what's kind of important. So it was nice. It was really a nice event.
Well, that's awesome, man. The synergy definitely is, like you said, between the MSP and the vendor community together is what makes a great product and makes things grow.
Absolutely.
But from there, let's talk, it was a little sideline, but let's talk a little about PitchIT and explain to everybody what ConnectWise PitchIT is all about.
Sure. Good question. So PitchIT, we're on our 5th year running. It started out as a way for ConnectWise to give back to the vendor community with a Shark Tank competition. But really, the giveaway is really in regards to the MSPs, because looking for the most innovative startup companies that are going to be the best fit to help MSPs grow or be more effective or operationalize better, whatever it may be, right? And so for the last few years, they've had the ability to, we've done three companies that would show up at IT Nation Connect to pitch on stage. First place winner gets 70 grand, second gets 30 grand, third place, Jelly of the Month Club. And we transformed it last year into a much larger, more in-depth program, to where we've turned it into an accelerated incubator program. So that way it's not just about the 3 finalists anymore. It's about the collective. Again, this is all about looking for innovative companies that are working within the MSP space. Over 60% of them have been or currently are MSPs that have started these companies, solving a problem for themselves. And then they start adding customers on. But this accelerated incubator program is really about getting them to be more submerged into the ecosystem, because vendors are looking to figure out a way to grow and to improve, and MSPs are looking for stack alignment. So, as ConnectWise has one of the largest marketplaces in our space, and this has become much more complementary to them.
Cool, cool. Now, let's meet one of our PitchIT contestants for this week's episode. I'd like to bring in Mr. Darren Strong. He is from Scalable MSP. Darren, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you. Now, for those who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then how you got to Scalable MSP?
Yeah, so my IT career was all on the tools. So started off in a corporate, grew my way up there with that corporate, and then went across to an MSP. So I went from a 250-man IT team down to a 7-man IT team in an MSP, and stayed there 15 years. Helped to grow that business. Got to about 55, 60 people, 7 million turnover. And during that, I also went into HTG, which is now Evolve, so the ConnectWise peer group. And I now facilitate for them as well. So for the last 7, 8 years, I've been facilitating 4 groups. And I've also bounced around a little bit between other MSPs. So I've seen the MSP community, and I believe that I've started to do what I'm told. So basically set up the systems and the processes, how, these communities tell you to do it.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about Scalable MSP.
Yeah, so Scalable MSP was born out of the back of that, really. So out of the back of seeing about 80 MSPs a quarter within the peer group and other things that I do, and learning to do as you're told. So build the systems, build the structure, build the processes, exactly like ConnectWise tell you to do, Paul Dipple tells you to do, Evolve tells you to do. And off the back of that, people started to ask me, can you help me with this? Can you help me with these different things that I've got in the business as a problem? And then that's just built a brand, really. So it's been basically built out of demand.
Okay, pretty cool, pretty cool. Now, as you've evolved in this PitchIT competition, tell us what's been your experience.
Yeah, I think Sean's talked a little bit about the surprise, the celebration at the end. Do you win? Do you not win? And that's great. It's a massive cherry on top. But I think the 16-week plan that we've got, bringing professionals in that have been there, done it in the certain areas to talk about that for a period of time, and meeting other people that are going through this journey. I mean, that's the value. Getting that value, getting inside that ecosystem, getting experience of different people. So hopefully you don't make mistakes, or it builds relationships. We all know this is all about who you know. It always is. So who do you know in certain spaces, and that's the value, really. We want to bring profitability, scalability, and time back to our clients, which is the MSP, and it's how do we best do that? Let's do that right first time.
Yeah, you know what? And let's dig in for a second. You mentioned Paul Dipple and you mentioned ConnectWise, right? And we know that we were doing some recordings last week at Secure. We were talking to some of the PitchIT people that were sponsoring there, and the best definition that we could think of is you talk about ConnectWise is the core and the vendors are the extremities, like a body, right? That's what this is when you're attaching. So, and I say this because again, back to what you said, which was taking what ConnectWise says and building best practices from, right? And use Paul Dipple again. But so let's talk that through. You're providing a platform, and every MSP, and Rick is an MSP, and whatever products he used, they always say you should use it this way. So how do you make that complementary for if they're using ConnectWise and other vendors as well?
Yeah, well, we believe it's all about the system. So you can't scale or build a system. You can't build or scale a business without a system. So all you do is end up with this gut feel. So the MD, the owner, becomes the gut feel go-to person, answering all the questions. And that MD has only got so many 60 hours a week before he gets burned out, and he can't do any more. So you start to hit certain ceilings, whether that be 1 million or 2 million turnover, and actually, to be able to scale any further, it's about building a system. So that system is the ConnectWise ecosystem, the processes, the documentation behind all of that, and the training of those individuals to then start to build a leadership team, build KPIs, build data, and that's how you're going to build the system and build this company to go any further than it already is. Otherwise, you'll just consistently be at that plateau and at that ceiling. That's what I've seen across the community, especially in the peer groups as well. There's only a certain amount of people that go past those ceilings, and that's because they've started to realize that it's about the people and it's about the systems.
Sure. So now, are you providing a platform for this?
So we build the systems for you. So we're typically a consulting company. So you come to us with the ConnectWise ecosystem. You're probably using 10% of each item. You know, everyone likes a nice shiny tool. So we get those tools, we build it with you, but we match it to you. So we're not coming with just one framework or one box. We've got multiple boxes. We design that to match your MSP. But then the real exciting bit is we do that for you. So we do the integration, the setup, the systems, where everybody else tries to teach you what to do. We actually take that from you, you know, because what we find is people aren't good executors. They've got no time. They're not good communicators. So we take those three elements away from you, and our consultants and teams will build all those systems for you, train your team to use them, attach the processes that are usable processes, and then help your team to push that forward using KPIs and dashboards, etc.
Gotcha.
So let me ask this question: if I'm an MSP and I'll come to Scalable MSP for help, what size do you recommend that we be at before you can help us or you can help implement this?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so it's roughly over 1 million turnover, probably around 7 staff. And to get the real benefit out of it, you want to be aiming for some sort of legacy plan. So where do you want to be at the end of this chapter? Is it that you want to retire and it's a lifestyle business and you just want a wage, or is it that you want something at the end? And typically it's we want something at the end, but we don't really know what it is, when it is, and how we're going to get there. We help you to realize that, and then we help you to get there by building those systems and helping you with mentoring, consulting, systems, processes to help you to start to grow that business.
So if I am an MSP and I'm doing the 7 figures, have about 7 employees, that's correct. And I come to you and I say, hey, I'm looking, let's say I want to build this business I want to make it a legacy business. I'll just throw that out there. Is there a time frame process that we work with you, or is this a continuously ongoing relationship? How's that work?
So it typically starts off with a minimum 12-month commitment, but most of our partners, I would say 95% of our partners have been with us over 2-3 years. The ones that started was at the very beginning of our journey. We've been going 2 years. And so, it's a consistent evolving thing. So as we help you to build and help you to grow, you're going to hit the next ceiling. You're going to get another 5 or 10 employees. That then develops a whole new way of working and a whole new set of processes, way of running a service desk, etc. So typically we'd have multiple meetings over a month period of time. We're working on 2 to 3 actions at a time to help you to mature your business in whatever process or structure that we've chosen that's a priority for you in the business at the minute. So that could be service delivery, it could be sales and marketing. It all depends on where do we think is the lowest maturity structure within the business that's holding you back. Then we can help you to build that.
Now, are you in the product for them then? If they come to you and say, we're using this stuff here, we're using ConnectWise, we're using vendor A, B, and C also to be complementary. Are you in those for them and doing the setup?
We are, yeah. So we would build those and mature them together. So let's say we're looking at the service desk, we'd build service boards, workflows, structure within ConnectWise. We'd build bright gauge documentation, bright gauge dashboards. Then we'd build documentation in the documentation platform, and we'd build all of that out. And then we train your teams to use it. Then we could create compliance reports as well to show that your team is or isn't using it, and then reaffirm, at the end of the day, these people may have been with you 20 years. So we're trying to break down habits. So what we want to do is show them the why. Why are we doing this? What's the reasons behind it? What's in it for them? And then help them to go down that journey as well as the owner. So we're helping the whole team go down that journey in growing the business.
Gotcha. Okay. So how long does it take on average from if we hire you today to get us anywhere, wherever anywhere is? I don't even know at this point.
Yeah, so typically within that 12 months, let's say you look at the Sleek platform that talks about OML 1 to 5. So typically people will come to us and they're around a 2, 2.2, 2.4. We'll get them to a 3 within that 12 months. As an average across the platform. So if you don't know what that is for some of the listeners, that's a platform that's trying to create a metrics on how mature your business is across the 4 pillars around financial, sales, and operations. And so we create and use that Sleek platform so we know that we're maturing the business and we're working on the right things, not just the things that are creating the noise for you. That could just be a symptom, not actually the issue. And we help you to get to that.
And you're addressing all departments of the MSP?
All departments, yeah. So what we've learned as well in my career, you can only take certain departments to a certain level without bringing the rest of the departments up. It's like a band. You're going to stretch it. If you take service department too far, they start to talk a different language than your sales department, and you'll just create issues between the departments. So what we want to do is bring them up at a steady pace together, aligned. And in most cases, also bringing the owner and the principal along on that journey as well, because often they need to change the way they're doing things because actually they're some of the problem, let's say.
Okay, that's fair, because I think we all know, and I mean, Rick will attest to it. We look at the operational maturity level of MSPs and they think they're at one place where they're really at a different place, and they end up struggling. And one thing always falls off. And usually what falls off first is growth. We know that. That's the first thing that doesn't happen. So, and again, from what I've experienced, growth falls off due to a couple of reasons. One is they simply just don't know how to grow, right? They're not sales and marketing people. So that's one thing all to itself. The other is they get so consumed by their operations that they're busy working in the business as opposed to on the business. So they really can't even address that. They're just busy being client service, client success, and that's a challenge. And that's due to operational maturity, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's also knowing your numbers as well. If you want to create best-in-class numbers, typically what we find is people bring on sales and account managers too late. So we want to know that you're doing 50% margin in operations, which means you've got another 30% left for your sales and admin and marketing function, which means you're going to have 20% bottom line, which is what we're all aiming for as far as best-in-class. So you want to make it where if you're not good at sales or you're too stretched in sales and marketing, we want consistency. So we want to bring in the resource at the right time, depending on what the data is telling us. And what does that legacy plan look like? What does your growth plan look like?
Fair enough. And so I have a question then. How much workload on me as the MSP is involved in making this happen? Like if you broke down percentage.
Yeah. Well, that's what's great, I think, about the program. So if you look at a typical consultant, you're asked to do the legwork. So if you need to restructure 200 agreements in ConnectWise, you're going to have to spend the next 16 to 18 hours restructuring it. We do that for you. So the bit of time you need with us is for us to know your business and what your clients look like, which is why we don't have just one framework, because you're in this because you do it your way and your clients like your way. We don't want to change that. So the time you're giving to us is us just understanding your business. We then do the heavy lifting for you. So you're looking between 6 to 8 hours a month of time with our consultants to then take it to that sort of pace that we're looking at. So that sort of 0.6 decimal place of OML as far as increasing the business.
Sure.
Some of our partners want to go twice as fast. So obviously that's twice as much time. All depends on what your timeline looks like. What's your exit plan look like? How fast do you want to get there?
That's good.
Now,
I like that.
If I always look at this from my perspective as an MSP and speak from that side. But so if I'm doing this and we implement with you, is there are you taking each department separately and working with them, or is it so?
No, what we tend to find is that it's interlinked, because when you change something, let's say in the sales process around the journey, that's going to impact, let's say, your onboarding team, your professional services team, your operations team. So there's some separation and then there's some interlinking as well. What we do is we start with a full audit. So we understand from your Sleek output and our own audit, operational audit, whereabouts you are, what we think your priorities look like in your business. Then we have a consulting engagement to align those priorities to what you want them to be. Then we create a 12-month roadmap. So that 12-month roadmap will tell you every quarter where we expect to be and how much your commitment is involved and how much of our commitment is involved. And also how much change are we going to do? Your team may not actually be able to do that change at that pace. So we may slow down. Or you may say, actually, Darren, I want to go twice as fast. What does that look like? And we can do that.
Okay. So essentially you're coming in and you're evaluating the whole company as a whole, and then you're determining what to do. Like you mentioned, low hanging fruit, you're addressing those ones. You're making sure you take them from OML2 to OML3 essentially within 1 year. And so individual workload along with overall, so you're becoming part of the company essentially.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And what I really like is that we start with the end in mind. So we start with, what do you want out of this? If you look at agreements, like I mentioned earlier, there's lots of different ways of configuring agreements in ConnectWise, but it mostly comes down to, what size of MSP do you want to be in the next couple of years, and what data do you want out of this system? We don't want to make it too complex and you never use the data or you never get to that size, but equally we don't want to make it very basic and in 12 months time you're having to do it all again. So where do you want to be? What data do you need? What level of service gross margin do you need out of your financial package? We can then align your GL of accounts, align all your chart of accounts to that system, and then build out those agreements and make it look right.
Got it.
So it sounds like, I'm sorry, Sean. This is one of those things. I think about this in my head. And as a 20-year business owner, I'm running this company. One of the things I struggle with most when I first started bringing on employees is giving up responsibility, is giving up doing things my way, right? And I'm sure you have to run into that resistance when you're dealing with owners, no matter how many people in the company, because they're used to doing it their way. So how much of a challenge is that? Even, you know, and I'll say that with this, every MSP owner is recognizes that they need to make changes, but are very reluctant to make the changes that are recommended to them.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I say we're also taking the principle down on this journey. You know, it starts with the principle. Everything in business starts with the owner. If something's wrong, it comes back to the owner. So we're taking you down this journey as well. So we want to know where your end goal is, why you want to get there. And I'm just going to bring you back to that all the time. Every time I get resistance about, yeah, but I don't want to hand off these accounts, it's right, okay, well, here's where you wanted your legacy plan to be. Here's where your financials need to be. Here's why that matters. And if you don't do that, that's going to become the blocker. So what do I need to do? What data do I need to give you? What process documents do we need to give you for you to be comfortable to start to hand that off? And then we'll do effective delegation, help you to delegate that task off. You know, where is the pivots of you know, what your customers expect and what you expect, and what's that difference? So we're doing all that coaching and mentoring with that owner and the leadership teams as well, in some cases, depending on the size of the MSP, to help you to guide that business to where you need it to be, rather than it just being you may get there or you may not get there. We're being very distinctive about where we need to be.
So are you helping, to Rick's point even, are you helping them to understand what they need to? We know an MSP owner, entrepreneur, like you said, it's his way, right? So you're then going and learn his processes, procedures, way of doing business. You're helping them to improve it, I'm assuming, and make it repeatable and scalable, and to tweak it wherever and leverage the technology as well, right? Because like you mentioned earlier too, 10% are using about, right? Which we know it's pretty universal. So you're teaching them how to actually take some of his stuff and put it in there to make it scalable, repeatable, and scalable. Now, are you also acting as a therapist for the owner because they need it?
I think that was my question.
Yeah, definitely.
A life coach.
And I've had lots of experience doing that during the Evolve peer group. You know, I've at times I've been a facilitator for 4 groups, so I've been in those situations where people are wearing a mask. Or they think they're running the business one way, but actually in reality they're running it a different way, and that's a journey that they need to go down. So we talk about a journey a lot in our business. You know, we're all going down that journey, and what does that journey look like? And you've got to get your teams behind you on that journey. You know, you're not going to do it on your own. So how can I help you to achieve that?
I love that. I think it's important that you do it, because otherwise things get absolutely nowhere fast. So, and I want to come back to the 10%. Is it safe to say that working with you guys will help me to understand what products I really am not using, and we're not using the full capability, but also what I really don't need?
Yeah, definitely. And we know some of the vendor licensing models. You know, we know what success looks like for these vendors, so we can help you to navigate that. And, you know, if you're not using it right now, or there's a better product, or there's a different way of using it, typically what we find is people become spreadsheet masters. So they use ConnectWise 10%, and everything else is a spreadsheet. They're managing pipelines, opportunities, sales processes, Word documents for quotes. And that's all because they've been with a consultant, but then they've tried to execute themselves. And when they tick that one box and they get the wrong answer, I'm out of time now. So now I'm going to divert straight back to my spreadsheet, and they'll use spreadsheets again. So that's why take that execution away from you. So we're not asking you to tick the boxes. We're just asking you to tell us what you need. We'll then help you to maybe tweak that slightly, because maybe that's a habit that you don't want to be doing because you're seeing this problem, and we're going to explain to you why you're seeing that problem. So we may tweak it slightly. Then we're going to configure the systems, the documentation, the reporting, your team to use it that way.
That's good. I like hearing that. I mean, it's process, people, technology, right? That's the order it should be in, right? Not that it really works that way, but I also think that process, people, technology order adjusts based off of the OML. I feel like it's, when you're OML 1, a startup company, your people then process technology because you have no clue what you're doing. It's just it's a company of 1, maybe 2, right? So there's no process. The process is we do everything.
Right.
Yeah, and I've been in those situations. When I've started in small MSPs, you maybe have 7, 8 people. You all know how each other works. You know where each other's been all week. You know all the customers. You know all the sites. But if you want to grow this to actually create a legacy for yourselves, that's going to change. You're not going to know some customers. You're not going to know how certain engineers do certain things. So we call engineers artists. They will paint you a car, but what car and what color? If you don't have a system and a process in place, you'll get different colors and different cars. And that's why customers get upset. And that's why they always ring up and ask for Bill, because they always get the same answer from Bill and they don't trust anybody else. Got it,
which is fair. Now, okay, so my one question comes down to profitability or P&L, let's just say, because I feel like, again, one thing is if as you go through the process of this, we'll figure out what technologies to eliminate or what process or what people even to eliminate from this, right? So that's already a savings in itself, right?
Or scale without adding people, scale and don't just create a bigger monster, which is where I've been myself.
So what do your average MSPs that work with you, what are they seeing as far as an ROI or whatever, however you're measuring?
Yeah, so most people, like I say, go up sort of 6 to 8 points on an OML from a sleek point of view. But on the profitability point of view, most people are sort of getting 22-24% bottom line. And 21, 22 is what SLI says best in class at the minute. So they're doing 50% operations, 30% sales, admin and marketing, and 20-ish% bottom line. Got it. And then they're scaling with that. We're not eroding the bottom line just because we're scaling.
Makes sense. Okay. You may want to think about also when we talk about this, people that are listening to this are not all within our ConnectWise world. So when you're mentioning OML, a lot of guys have never even discussed OML. So a lot of people don't even realize it means operational maturity. So, So if you're
I mentioned earlier that OML comes from the Sleep platform and SLI, and it's basically looking at the maturity of your business. Is it all muscle and feel that we talk about in Evolve? Is it all muscle and feel? So it's all about the owner, and we don't really know what the data is. We think it's this, and we think the operations look like this, all the way up to a high OML where it's consistent, it's repeatable, it's giving you the right gross margin. Everybody knows what they're doing. The customers have the same journey. I talk about the Big Mac a lot. When you go to a McDonald's drive-through, you get the Big Mac, and you go to a McDonald's drive-through because you want the speed, you want the Big Mac, the same cost, the same fillings, same experience. That's what a customer wants when they want a password resetting on the 365. Exactly that same experience. And that's a high OML.
Agreed. Okay, cool. Rick, I'm sorry, I'm totally taking over. Any questions?
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was just just thinking about how this applies to my business and the challenges we face. And I just, I think about every time we talk to a consultant or we read something or hear something from someone, it's always kind of like that crushing part about you're doing this, not necessarily you're doing this wrong, but you're going about this the wrong way. You're looking at it the wrong way. And that's always been that resistance for me. Right. So, I'm just trying to figure out how or when does an MSP come to you and how do they get to that point? I guess, do they come to you or you come to them?
So typically I see 2 stages. One is that they've valued the business, or they've got 5 years left and they realize that this hasn't grown in the last 10 and I need it to be double the size by 5. And so they need change. If you're consistently doing the same thing, you're not going to go anywhere. So they've realized that. And so now they need some change, and they need it very quick, and they need it doing right first time. That's one of the reasons people come to us. The other reason is I've done 60, 70 hours a week. I've done that for the last 10 years. If I carry on, I'm going to be divorced or under the ground. And this isn't going anywhere. I need you to start helping me to give me some time back and enjoy the reason why I actually set up my own business. And at the same time, we get some growth or stability out of this. So that's typically the two reasons people come to us.
Okay. I asked that question just really because we're stubborn. And a lot of times we don't admit we need help, or we blame it on everybody but us. The tool, we blame it on, the something else, and everything except for our processes and the way we're doing things. So we don't necessarily, and it goes back to the 10% portion. I don't think it matters what tool we use. We use way less than what's available for us, right? Like, or what's out there. We kind of pick and choose what we think we need or want at that time, grab onto that, focus on that, and the rest of it is left. A perfect example of that is Microsoft Office 365, where most people use it just for the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, and there's so much more to it. So I guess I just asked that question just because it's that stubbornness that we got to get over, and forcing us to come to a conclusion before it's too late too, because I'm sure that happens as well, right? People come to you where they're over the cliff rather than approaching the cliff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I've had people come to me and say, I've got 2 years left. The business looks like this. I need to double it in size, and they've not moved for 10 years. Well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Something needs to change. Either your alignment of where you need to go, or this timeline needs to change, whatever that may be. But yeah, typically it's some sort of pressure pot. It's a pressure pot that has gone over to the point where now actually you need some help. You need to go somewhere because you don't have, it's a chicken and egg. You don't have any spare time in the day to actually make anything better, but you need to get some spare time in the day. So you need somebody to help you to do that.
I feel like you're like Scalable MSP is the 12-step program to recovery. 12 months in a year, you hit the next operational maturity level in a year. So literally one step a month, and you're right, Rick, and it's exactly like what I said earlier about Darren and company are the therapists to start with. Right. They are literally talking to you and that tough love of the realization of where do you want to be. And it comes down to the MSP though. If you don't think you have to change anything if you don't want to improve anything, then there's no sense in talking to them, right? Because I don't think there's a reason I would never want to sell you on using us or using Scalable MSP in general as a service if you don't really want to improve, right? Because that's a bad customer. It's not going to go well. So no, I'm so glad that you keep talking about being stubborn, because that's spot on.
Yeah, I mean, and I know it. I learned the hard way. So, Darren, I'm going to ask you, before we wrap up here, I'm going to ask you one more question. It's more so PitchIT related, but what you guys do, how you help us, help MSPs grow and improve their processes and help to grow. How has PitchIT MSP, or what contributions is PitchIT MSP teaching? PitchIT teaching Scalable MSP now that you're learning that you can use to help you service us better?
Yeah, so I think there's two things that have very quickly hit us. So one is actually clarifying our message, and we're still doing that, being very honest with you. But clarifying what is our message, what is it, what is the value that we're bringing, and it's great. Like for instance, I was on a session last week where someone read our website and read it completely different to how I'd put it together. But they're an MSP, so why is it that they're reading it that way? And we need to be able to change and alter that. And then secondly, it's making sure we're going down the right way, making sure we're building the right people that were around us, building those relationships, thinking about how we're going to actually transform this business and grow this business. And that's coming from those each weekly session that we do with different people that have been there and done it.
Sounds good. Sean, any final questions for him?
No. I mean, he's covered a lot. I've already beat him up a little bit, so I think we're good.
Excuse me. Wow. Well, guys, Darren, I do want to thank you for your time today. I know you guys have been busy. You're working through this program, and I do want to wish you luck. And as I tell every contestant, I'm rooting for you, and I wish you the best. And
he tells everyone
again,
I really hope you win
that, because if you guys improve your process, right, and you improve your product, your process, and you can only help my businesses like mine grow and get better, right? So I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you to learn what you need to learn. I'm rooting for you to grow your business and be successful, because the only way we're all successful, then it's great. So that's why I say that. And it's with bias that all of you do well. That's all to it.
I'll agree. You're absolutely so well put, Rick. If they don't do any better, you don't do any better. If they bring a scalable solution to you, again, as long as you're not stubborn.
Is the quicker that we all learn that it's a symbiotic relationship between all of us, the better we're all going to be. And that's just true. That's just true. Well, guys, I do want to thank you for our listeners out there. We invite you to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged or facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, hit that notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. You can also take us on the go. We're on your favorite podcatcher app. That's Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. For Darren, Sean, and myself, we want to thank you for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.
Toodles.